rolling?
Okay.
Yeah, we can go.
Rolling. Okay.
Gucci. Okay, how you doing, Frankie?
I'm doing great.
We back.
We're back.
I'm gonna let you talk to the people real quick about and let them know where we at and touching the bases where we going with this thing. And I'm gonna check the equipment, make sure we good. Okay.
Okay. Well, introduce the podcast first.
Okay, this is the Modish Lifestyle Podcast, and is Georgia the most racist state in the country when it comes to voter suppression? That's the question we are asking today. We're trying to find out, so y'all let us know. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I said the way we could start this week is just kind of running down some of the things that have happened. How many of y'all bought lottery tickets? Because I know I'm not a big lottery player, but, you know, $1.6 billion, I had to get in on the whole lottery. So one person won. And apparently the payout is around $913 million. And in case you're watching us and you bought your ticket in South Carolina, make sure you check those tickets. See if you had the number. The winning numbers 5, 28, 62, 65, 70, and 5. So I know one of my friends earlier had like 2 numbers. It was like, no, you didn't almost win. Sorry, you didn't almost win. Also, some other things going on in the news. We had, of course, the hurricane that's barreling down on Mexico, and President Trump kind of insinuating that as people are fleeing the coastlines of Mexico towards the border for safety, kind of implying that the U.S. shouldn't help because perhaps there are some Taliban or terrorists disguised in these caravans of people. So a lot of people are up in arms about that as President Trump begins to insinuate that fake news once again. So we know that's kind of his way. And we want to hear what you think about all of that. And we also want you guys to get involved today. That was a lot.
Yeah, well, it's rough when you you kind of.
Well, we're a professional. This is a professional setup, okay? I mean, it's a lot going on right now.
We ain't hitting that on.
It's a lot going on. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay.
So how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It was a great week. Thank you, everybody who watched our podcast. Of course, it's up right now on YouTube if you missed last week's broadcast. Yes. And this one will be up on YouTube a little later. But right now, we hope you're joining us. But over 1,000 views.
The first one.
24 hours, in less than 24 hours. 1.4 or 1,400 views, I'll say that. But thank you so much. Give us all the extra views. Okay, I'm gonna give us all of it, you know. So give it to us again. We want you all to join us. And this is your show. This is, it's our show. We're here, but it's really all about what the viewers want to hear.
Yes, this is the Modest Stills podcast, and we'll be coming at you, if not weekly, bi-weekly. It just depends what's going on in the news, and it's just to keep the people informed for the most part. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times people watch the news, and sometimes the news only goes one direction, especially if you're in the South. A lot of the times that the news programs, they say they're equal, and they're limited to the time and stuff that they can talk about. So we can kind of get a little deeper because we know we did our research.
Exactly.
And talk about things more in depth, and as well as to let the people interact with us. So if you're listening and everything sounds good to you, check in one time, hit that like button if you're ready to go in, because we're talking about the Georgia gubernatorial. I've been practicing that word.
You can say that word. I'm not even going to try to say that word.
I've been practicing that word, the gubernatorial debate last night between Stacey Abrams, Brian Kemp, and I think his name is Ted Metz.
That was a mess. I mean, from his first question when they asked him about how he would sell the fact of cutting property taxes and sales tax and including it on the sales tax. I can't remember the question, but he says, "Oh, we'll just issue a card and they'll use it right." I was like, simple, and I'm like, simple? You answer a question. What do you mean simple?
Okay, so who you want to start with tonight? Let's just start with Mr. Kemp.
All right,
Mr. Kemp. What do you got on Mr. Kemp? And I'm gonna actually share this to some of my followers on my pages while you talk about Mr. Kemp and some the policies that he supports.
Right. Well, of course, we have Brian Kemp, who is our Republican candidate, and the biggest thing about about Brian Kemp is that he is the current Secretary of State. Some of the things that he leans very much to Republican values and is kind of straight in line with the things that President Donald Trump is really for, and the issues that he ran on. When you look at things like health care, they want to kind of destruct the whole Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, and they're also very pro-gun laws. They are extremely in support of stopping immigration or putting a ban on immigration, and putting so many, and I say a ban because when you put so many limits and so many rules and regulations on top of immigration, you're basically saying you don't want people to be able to easily immigrate to our country. So I call it a ban, but yeah, there's so many things going on with him. He's also has a huge problem. We know today yesterday President Trump called himself a nationalist in one of his speeches during one of the rallies that he had, and I tend to believe that Brian Kemp probably feels the same way, that he's a nationalist. And I mean, and that's not the same as saying a white supremacist or a white nationalist, that we see marching through Charlottesville. But I say, that as a country, we have to be worried about the welfare of other countries and how well other countries are doing, as well as how well we're doing, because, it's like we're all working together. We have to work together because we all are intertwined, especially economically.
I felt like you just said, I felt that he was using some of the same exact tactics that Donald Trump uses, blaming Obama for everything, and he kept that point. He kept bringing that point up. To me, he's not for all Georgians. He's talking to his base.
Absolutely.
And he's like, these are the people I'm talking to. If I can get them to come out and vote for me, I'm not studying the other side. So everything he was saying, he was just speaking to his base. I felt that in contrast, that Ms. Abrams was going across the aisle, reaching out to all of Georgians. And we're going to get into some of the specifics in a minute. So let's talk about Mr. Metz for a second before we go there.
I honestly can't say very much about him. There wasn't really much to find on him, other than the fact that he's kind of putting a monkey wrench in the whole race, because when you even look at it right now, they're in Abrams and Kemp are in a statistical dead heat, and probably the variation are the few supporters that Ted Metz is kind of taken away from either side, whereas maybe if he weren't in the race, this would be a situation where we could really kind of see, and that may have been the deciding votes if he hadn't, if his hat wasn't in the ring.
Whose side do you think Metz is hurting the most? Do you think he's hurting Kemp most? Or do you think he's more? Or do you think he's hurting Miss Abrams more?
Honestly, I think he's probably pulling a little from both.
Both,
yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
And I say that mostly because there's not a whole lot of coverage on him. In fact, until last night, I was kind of like, who? when he popped up.
Did it like he was high or something?
I don't want to say. Yeah, I don't want to say that because he is disabled, and
I am so sorry. I did not know that. I'm so sorry. I thought he was on a moon rock or something.
No. I mean, there's nothing mentally. It's something that happened, and he's missing one of his ears. But that's where.
Oh, well, that ain't got nothing to do with how he was talking.
Yeah, no, it has nothing to do with how he was talking.
He was talking like he was on, like he was. And I think he's pro marijuana, right?
Yes, he is pro medical marijuana or legalizing marijuana, which and I think that because he is taking such a strong stance on that, there are people who probably would normally vote either of the other ways, and they're probably gravitating a little bit more towards him.
Okay, getting back to Mr. Kemp, I was having technical difficulties on my computer. I got an old computer, y'all. Y'all see, I'm gonna send out a GoFundMe so y'all can help me get a computer.
They send GoFundMe out for everything else. Go ahead.
My computer probably older than some of y'all watching this thing. Anyway, Mr. Kemp, he was sued by the military for I guess the military do like write-in ballots, and I think he kicked some of them out, so he was sued by the military. He also, a couple of years ago during the election, something happened, and he had 6 million voters' information out there in the cyber world. And the feds basically told him, like, look, like your system, your security system is not open, is not working. We went straight to your system. I'm talking about this is 6 million voters in Georgia, and I'm talking about your social security numbers. All that was just wide open. So what they end up doing, instead of handling the problem, they erased everything.
Right.
So the feds couldn't. What they was trying to do, because they believed that the Russian hackers that hacked the 2016 election, with the election with Donald Trump, they believe those same hackers were behind hackers for the state. But before they could find out, the Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, they erased everything. So their solution to protecting the voters of Georgia's information was just erase it. So we never know who got what and got, you know what I'm saying, at the time it happened, because they just erased it. Like I said, he kept speaking to his base, and the dog whistle with racism. That's the thing. Black people, trace this. Let me say this. There is no way Stacey Abrams can win without white people. No way. It's not enough. It's the demographics. Georgia's only like 30-something% black, and that's counting every man, woman, and child, not every registered voter. So it's not a black and white thing. It's people who believe in the values and some of the things that she believes in. So it's not a race thing when it comes to the message she's putting out there. She has no chance unless some white people vote for her, and you can see it's a dead heat. So it's a lot of white people who believe in the message that she's putting out there.
Right.
I felt that she did walk a fine line, but she spoke to all of Georgia. She talked about
as a governor should.
Yes, she talked about bringing even the dude Kemp. He put something out there about the ruralness. Is everybody needs to vote online. They wouldn't have had that problem with registering.
Right.
But in rural areas, they don't have broadband.
Exactly.
So she put something out there how they can bring all that to permission for all of Georgia. So I don't know, man. It seemed like Kemp was just same old red tactics to me. Exactly.
And I think probably, and then when you think about things like criminal justice and drug policy, we know Stacey Abrams is a lawyer by her trade before running for governor. And one thing that Brian Kemp does, he calls gang violence a public safety crisis and plans to create a new unit in the state attorney general's office that's devoted to fighting this kind of crime and opposes in-state cultivation of medical marijuana. And meanwhile, Stacey Abrams pledges to eliminate the use of cash bail for some poor defendants, backs taking steps to decriminalize marijuana and expanding accountability courts and finding capital and ending capital punishment. So just to kind of round all that up, I think probably as you talk about legalizing marijuana, I think it is a very important issue for our community that they also look at decriminalizing marijuana, because there are a lot of people now who are in jail because they were possessing minor possessions, or even things where because they've been arrested or punished for having this marijuana, that now that's just a part of the economy they can never get into, which that's kind of unfair to say, okay, I'm going to arrest you for having marijuana, and then 3 years later, oh, now it's legal, so now, oh, you still can't sell it now. You can't even sell it legally now because you were arrested for having it illegally. Yes. So I think that is something that has to be reviewed. It has to be discussed.
When it comes to marijuana, just y'all let me know what y'all think. Do you think marijuana should be legal in the whole country? Just leave it in the comments. What's your opinion? I'm going to tell you why I think it should be. Mm-hmm. Everything out west, they smoking. They smoking. They burning.
Everything growing. They smoking it.
Washington, Oregon, Colorado,
California.
Cali. Why in the South are they tripping? You know what I'm saying? Why
DC.
they tripping? We got all the farmland. Just think
perfect growing element.
Grow some good stuff. You know what I'm saying? Now, I don't smoke, but if I did smoke, I'm sure the soil in Georgia could probably grow some of that gas. They be smoking that gas.
Oh my gosh.
They could probably grow some of that gas. But
maybe so.
Look at some of these West Coast states. They're in surplus. I mean, they are booming with marijuana. Marijuana is like the new thing. I think. So, I do think Georgia is going to be in the forefront when it comes to the South. Finally, just give it in a little bit because it's too much money. But one thing about America, we are a capitalist system. We're going to follow that check. So I think Georgia, sooner or later, we are going to get in line and relax marijuana, like Atlanta did. And she said something about just segueing to Atlanta. Atlanta stopped cash bonds on a lot of charges, nonviolent charges, because it was punishing the poor for being poor.
Right.
And they had in the debate, they actually brought that up that they tried to tell a lie that since they adopted that policy that people wasn't showing up, and no, that's not right. Even the state of Georgia, this came from the state. They said basically that people come back to court is on the same rates that they were before they had a cash bond. So it's letting people who were poor, who couldn't afford to get out on bond, and the rate of people actually come back to court hasn't changed. So that's, once again, they're blowing these dog whistles. They're using fear tactics. They're trying to scare people, and they're telling lies to push their agenda. And Georgia needs to be informed, and that's what we're here for, to let people know the real deal from the fake.
Exactly. And then another issue that they kind of stand, basically on polar opposites is this issue of climate change in our environment. Of course, Brian Kemp says he supports the fact-based efforts to protect the environment. His policy does not include any detailed plans to restore shorelines or to take other preventive measures. He says a one-size-fits-all approach is, basically all that's needed, and that's going to be the state's answer, and that local communities should decide on their own any codes or regulations that are implemented. Meanwhile, Stacey Abrams is of the thought process that climate change is real. I mean, we still have on shorts, and it's October, almost November.
Remember when we was younger at the fair time? It'd be cold.
Yes, you had Tuskegee Morehouse.
Sweating, it's hot.
Yeah, Tuskegee Morehouse people had on their fur coats. They had on boots.
No more.
Not anymore. You go out there with that, and you are going to burn up. Okay, so and everyone's kind of eyeing, even as we head towards Found City Classic, like, is it going to be cold enough for boots?
They don't know what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah, come on, something is happening. Whether you want to call it climate change or not, I don't know what else to call it other than climate change, but there's definitely a shift in something. And Stacey Abrams wants to strengthen environmental protection. She says her policies could put the state in a position to create as many as 45,000 high-wage jobs in the glowing alternative energy sector. So
she got her notes on click. I'm looking for mine. I'm like, where my stuff at? You got all the good notes.
I'm sorry. You have those too.
I don't know where my notes
shared.
At. Yeah, you did share. I felt that the total debate was. I think she crushed it.
I absolutely believe she
outside did. Of the when they said something about the flag, and it's crazy about the flag. Let me talk about the flag real quick.
That's a great point.
Remember, several, now with media, things go by so quick. Like a month is like forever.
Yes.
About a month ago, maybe a month and a half, we had a Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and a lot of people thought that. Judging him from things that happened in college was unfair. Regardless of what there was sexual assault allegations against. He's a Supreme Court Justice now, associate Supreme Court Justice now. But a lot of people thought that was unfair to judge him from things that happened 40 years ago.
Right.
But the same people who made that argument came right back around and did the exact same thing to Stacey Abrams.
Right.
And that's what really makes me mad with the right. And I'm going to tell you a story about me. When When I was young, my dad used to call me a blue dog. My nickname is Blue. For y'all who know, my nickname is Blue.
Right, that's how you're on my phone. Yes, okay.
But before I even got that nickname, my dad he's always, God bless the dead, Larry J. Flowers. He did soldiers, served his country and everything. Right. He used to watch the news all the time. Like I don't think they had Fox News. They had CNN then. He just watched the news all the time. So before we get to watch cartoons or watch the programs we wanted to watch, we had to watch the news with him. So I grew up watching the news.
Right.
And when I had an opinion about something, he used to say, "Don't bark, blue dog." I said, "Why you call me a blue dog?" He said, "You a blue dog." And I never knew what that was until I got older. A blue dog is a conservative Democrat. And as for our conversation last part, you can tell that I do have some conservative views.
Yes.
But I try to keep things, in the middle for the most part. But when it comes to the voter suppression laws in our particular city, we had conflict. Right. 3,500, I think, ballots in Columbus, Georgia, were actually, I guess, recused, or they didn't allow them. And I have this is from research from one of the she's not here tonight, but a girl named Courtney. That's my dog. She actually wrote this piece for me, and I'm gonna find it in a second. It's somewhere here. There you go. This one right here. 3,600 pending voter registration applications in Muskogee County were denied, and this was also reported on the news by Robbie Watson. Robbie Watson. And what it basically said was that they were missing information such as the names, date of birth, driving license numbers, social security numbers, and signatures. And this all came out of Columbus, and I think the whoever's in charge of the elections here even kind of co-signed that. So I mean, it's the media. The media is all about ratings. So they're gonna tell people certain things just for you to anger some people, right, and energize other people. But if some of these people, sometimes when they're registering and voting, everybody makes mistakes. So basically, how we was talking earlier,
right,
they're registering all these people to vote. Mistakes are going to be made.
Absolutely.
But and this a conversation I had with an attorney. I'm not going to say his name on air, but he told me that African Americans, we have eccentric names. My son's name is Jaquavion. He has an asterisk in his name. If your name is different on your social security card than it is on your license, they're kicking you out. If you put drive and on your license it's spelled DR with a period, they're kicking you out.
Right.
That's not right. And just as recently as what this one here say, a judge said that he's rejecting no ballots to do the signature is illegal. You cannot do that. But that's exactly what the Secretary of State is doing. If you make it any kind of mistake on your paperwork, they're making your voter registration null and void. So.
And I think probably, a lot of people hear about voter suppression and they're thinking, I'm sure you believe this and I believe this too, that only legal residents of the county, of the city, of the state, of the country should be able to place a ballot in the elections. And people say, well, if they made a mistake, then why are they, they shouldn't be able to vote. And I get that, but I think it's even deeper than that. It's more than just the name matching and the street matching. I think it's just the implication of it all is just, if you feel like if I go to this event or to the election, the polling center, it's going to be a big hassle. And so on some level, for some people, that's enough for them not to come. Intimidation. Yeah, that's enough for them not to go, I don't want any problems. I don't want to get into an argument with somebody. I don't want to have to fight about, so I'm just going to sit this one out. And then the other thing that's happening is the voter purging, meaning that if you don't use it, you lose it. For a lot of people who didn't vote in the last election or who haven't voted in maybe some of the past, someone could be sick. Someone could have been battling cancer for the past 2 years. You have no idea what's going on with people or why they didn't vote for, 1 or 2 or 3 elections, but whatever the reason, they didn't cast a vote. And what the Secretary of State's office is doing is purging those people to where they're no longer eligible voters. So, you know.
And a judge declared that illegal.
Right.
And a lot of these judges are conservative judges. So it's not like these judges are, I guess, liberal judges. These judges are going by the law. And the law said you cannot do that. Just because somebody didn't vote in 2014, that doesn't mean that you can deny them to vote in 2018. I mean, it's just against the law.
It is. And I think another issue, I heard Brian Kemp mention this in one of the sound bites or the interviews I was listening to, is that he was like, oh, well, you know, if we see an application for Jesus Christ who lives on Heavenly Drive, you know, I'm like, okay, so one person made a joke, apparently, and you're trying to make it seem like that's where all of these 53,000 pending applications are coming from, and that's just not true. We know that that's the exception. That's not what's happening on these applications. It's more often what you said, an apostrophe missing, someone who is Pat instead of Patrick, or Pat instead of Patricia, and it doesn't match against their Social Security, or someone got married and they changed their license, but they never changed their Social Security card. These are the kind of things that are happening and attempting to keep people from voting. And I think the biggest thing we can educate viewers on is that you can vote. That even if you're on that pending list, even if you're in this situation, still go to the polls with your ID and cast your ballot, because you are allowed to vote. And if you can show your ID and say, hey, this is me.
And they can't deny you that.
They can't deny you that. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that you've got to go. You got to get out and you got to go and vote.
I think this is the popular consensus. I think we're going to go into a runoff, because it's like you have to get like over 50% or something like that to be declared the winner. And I think it's going to be a dead heat, and it's going to boil down to who values you believe in, Mr. Kemp's or Mrs. Abrams. I want to touch bases on the DACA. Brian Kemp said that even if a person is paying their taxes into Georgia, if they're not a citizen of the state, he doesn't believe in college tuition, or if they should even go to college off the Hope Scholarship. Right. But my thing is, if they're investing in Georgia, that they're paying their taxes. Right. If they went to high school here, why can't they get everything else that's a student who went to high school here, who was a resident of Georgia, should get? They're investing. They're paying their taxes. They're putting the money back into the state. Right. But I guess they feel like that's a vote for the blue. And you'd be surprised. A lot of and then I'm not speaking for the Hispanic community, because of course I'm not Hispanic, but a lot of them are conservative. Yes. They are very conservative. So I mean, they're just assuming that they're going to go one way, and it's all about votes. Right. If they felt that those folks were going to this would not be a problem. Exactly. They would let them vote. So I mean, and I think, and the big thing about the DACA is, they call this group of citizens the Dreamers, and the Dreamers are really they're people who were brought to this country, and maybe their parents are not legal citizens of America, but they came with their parents at a very young age, under 2 years old, as infants, and they've grown up here. This is all they know. They're just as American as me and you. Exactly. They don't know. I mean, you could say, send them back to their country, but it's like, send me back where? Send us back to Africa. Right. I don't know anybody in Africa. I'm going to go send me back to Africa. I don't know where I'm going to bust Botswana, Nigeria or somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to go. Right. But even with that, the thing with me is, and I was like, okay, so they can go into the Army, risk their lives for the country, but you won't give them the Hope Scholarship for education. But they can put their lives on the line for this country. Right. But you won't give them money to go to school. And that's just, I don't understand that. And I think it's the same principle that we see with the voter suppression, is that, yes, there are ways for people to become legal citizens of America, but if you've ever talk to anyone who is going through that immigration process right now, it is so ridiculous, and it is so ridiculously long and expensive and time consuming.
And it's not, is someone supposed to put their lives on hold for a hearing that they're given today that's 2 years away? Like, so what do you do for those 2 years? What is that family supposed to do for 2 years while they wait for that hearing? And until we clean up that whole process, I feel like we have to make accommodations until that is in a way that it's a more timely process. Because, if you can't work because you're not a citizen, and then you're saying it costs this much money and you need a lawyer and you need an immigration lawyer and you have to fill out all these documents and there are fees with the documents. Oh, by the way, you can't work until you become a citizen. That's like telling someone you can be a football player, but we're not going to teach you the rules of the game. Like, it's not a conducive process for what they want for people trying to immigrate to the United States.
Segueing back into the debate, they brought up the money thing. They said that Mrs. Abrams owed some money to the federal government.
Yes, $54,000.
But it also came out that Mr. Kemp had a loan that he owes $750,000 to a loan company. And I think Mr. Metz asked the question, how could either one of you manage the government with you both being indebted? So how do you feel about that?
The way I feel about that, as far as loans and him, as long as you can afford to pay them and you're paying, anyone can take out a loan and say, hey, now if it's in collections or something, and he's saying but I don't think that's the situation. And as far as Stacey Abrams having the IRS bill and student loans and things like that, there are many of us that have student loans. And I don't know, I heard her talking about it one day, and one thing she said is, how it is in the African American community. One person get a good job in the family, everybody has a good job in the family. So it's like that person's responsibility, and that's just our culture. And if you don't understand that, if you don't understand that families work together, and that she is a lawyer and she's making great money, and and yes, she has all these bills, but if her parents need something right now, then yes, I'm going to put those on hold, make minimum payments on this, and I'm going to use my money to help my parents right now.
Yeah, and she did say that.
If you don't understand, yes, and both of her parents were ministers, so she's like, they're going to be poor forever. Like, it's not like they retired from some big jobs where they're getting pensions or anything like that. And I get that. I totally understand that. So, and I think you can't fix an economic problem if you just ignore the realities of a whole community of people, which, that, to me, that's something that a lot of families deal with, that a lot of families deal with, one person who makes maybe a lot more than the rest of the family, and everyone in the family kind of leans on that person. And, so it is a lot. It's a lot, and it's not America's problem, but it's America's reality. And so we have to deal with reality. We can't deal with what you should have did or what you think I should do. It's what it is. And we can't keep making policies and not taking into account the realities of every sector of the community.
I got into a feverish argument on the Columbus Concerned Citizens page today with the person, and one of the things they said was, to me, they tried to punish people for being poor. It was like, well, you shouldn't spend your money on this, you shouldn't do that. They had a lot of excuses why people are poor. Right. At the debate last night, Mrs. Abrams brought up the point that a lot of law enforcement officers in poor counties are on food stamps. So I want to know what pushes the narrative to make people think you should judge poor people or punish them for being poor, when you have people who are putting their lives on the line for our safety and the safety of our community who are on food stamps.
Right. And, and to that point, also people in our military who are of lower ranks. There are some of those families who that's how they make it every month, is through, with food stamps or, with public assistance, and those not in the military with health care assistance, whether it be Medicaid. that's the reality. And if you don't understand that some people just don't have the opportunities that other people, you can say, oh, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and I made it happen for myself. But you also have to realize that that's not everyone's reality. That someone can try and try and try and try and do their homework and go to school and go and get a college education and then not get a job. And guess what? They're right back where they started from.
Right back where they started from.
Yeah. So, and I mean, we just have to come to that realization that you know, to say that you take this step, this step, this step, and I can get where this person, two people can do the exact same things. And because of one person's background, they're just going to go further. And that's, you know, that's just systemic racism that still is prevalent. And, you know, I mean, we have to combat against it, but, you know, it's our history. It's what happened. And so there's always going to be that situation of that, you know, some people will make it, some people won't. And it's not their fault. It's not their, you know, it's just about opportunity.
Exactly. So if you could talk to, let's say, a Kemp supporter and tell them why they should vote for Stacey, what would you tell them?
I mean, I probably wouldn't waste my breath because, but, you know, because a lot of those people have such strong ideologies. And I'm not saying that every Republican is racist, but I do have to, the reality is that how can you support someone when there's so many racist views at play? When I hear a candidate in a campaign ad saying, I have a big truck so I can round up all the illegals, like, are you kidding me? Like, who says that? Who says that to anybody? Like, you have a big truck? Who else are you rounding up? You know, so I just,
I keep it 100. I feel like that around election time, that when everybody be tripping.
Yes.
Like when it ain't election time, you want them Mexican here because really white folks and black folks have got too bougie for some of these jobs out here. I'm just keeping them 1K now. You know, jobs that I know back in the day that I know for a fact that black people used to take. That, you know, some black people say, no, I'm not doing that no more.
Right.
But these Mexicans, or I don't know if all of them are Mexican, but these Hispanic people, they'll come here, they'll take them jobs. They'll take them $7.50 an hour and all of them. You know how they do? They'll stay in one crib and they all boss up and they put their check together and then they'll start them a business here.
Right.
And so then that's when they start hating on them folks, because them folks that had a plan, they come here, they might be illegal, but they all they pool their money together and they start doing stuff. You see a lot of construction companies, y'all know what it is. Y'all see these landscapers, they be Hispanic, and all of them might not be legal, but they do good work. We don't have no problems with them. They cutting our grass, they building these roads. We got no problems with them until election time. That's when everybody start tripping.
Right, exactly. And I just think that that's probably the biggest thing is with this entire election is just the views are so different that I feel like the people who are on opposite sides, it's just kind of, you know, it is what it is. And I think it's more of dealing with the people who are kind of in the blue dogs, you know, to try to get blue there. I'm sure there are some red dogs too, people who are conservative, but they lean more. They have some liberal views on certain things, especially social issues. And I think those are the people, the base that Stacey Abrams has to appeal to and has to turn that tide in order to win this election. But I think probably the biggest thing that can happen for her is for everyone, all of her supporters, to get out and vote.
And not only do you need to get out and vote, you need to encourage your friends. Like I got homeboys, I got partners. I don't need to just go vote by myself. I need to say, hey, man, let's make this an event, man. Let's all go mob deep. Now, we'll all go to Club A. Y'all owe me for the shout-out.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go to Club Martinez. Y'all owe me for the shout-out. And we'll go all these places mob deep with our crews, with our homeboys. Y'all go to the voting polls like that. Go mob deep with your partners to the voting polls like that. You know what I'm saying? Make a difference in your community because at the end of the day, if you don't vote, you really, and you're able to vote, you really can't say nothing if the person that you're rooting for don't win. You really can't say nothing because you didn't exercise your civic duty to go vote.
And let's be clear, that's exactly why we have doofus in the White House right now. Just being honest. That's exactly why
they didn't like Hillary, so they didn't go vote.
I don't have any candidate I want to vote for. I don't like either one of them, so I'm just not going to vote. And it's like, no, you have to find things that you can at least stand behind.
Did you hear what he said about the migration? I think it's like 6,000 or 7,000 people migrating north toward the United States. And did you hear what he said?
Yes.
Terrorists.
There are terrorists hiding in the caravans.
MS-13.
I'm like,
he had no proof.
None. And they asked him. They asked him today, and he finally admitted that he had absolutely no proof of it.
But you just wait and see. He used scare tactics, and I'm like, how can y'all just fall for this, man? You know what I'm saying? How can y'all fall for it? Not to mention, I think a lot of people forget about this. This man was a Democrat up until like maybe 2015, 2014, whenever he announced his candidate for presidency. He was a Democrat. Yeah. He was a blue. So I mean that he struck that nerve with a solid majority to a certain degree. He used, to me, scare tactics, and I felt that. Let me say this, and this is just how I feel. I feel that white poor people, or middle class, and white black people, we're the same. Mm-hmm. Ain't nothing different between us. Right. I mean, we the same. It ain't between. President Trump has made it that way. Like the white man ain't getting his just dues, and we want to bring all that back with all that MAGA stuff. Mm-hmm. But we are the same, man. It's the rich against the poor. That's what it is.
Right.
It ain't white against black, because his policies, he don't give a damn about poor white people. His thing is all about the rich. When they signed that tax bill, he went back to Mar-a-Lago, wherever his little resort is,
yes,
and told, I saved you guys a bunch of money. He told his rich partners that.
Right.
So,
and I mean, and they're worried. They're worried. There was actually a fundraising event that Brian Kemp attended, and one of the things he said during that event is that, that they're afraid. They're afraid that all of these people that Stacey Abrams and her camp and the initiative she pushed 2 years ago, to get so many people registered to vote, they're afraid that these people will actually get out and vote, because they know that the power is in the numbers. Just like happened in the last election, we had senators that were voted in when 98% of black women came out to the polls. And the same thing can
happen in
Alabama. And the same thing can happen right here. It can happen just by us, just all mobilizing, getting out to vote, and not wasting the opportunity to vote.
And how can you be the referee and in the game? I don't understand how that works. I mean, to me, the Georgia, we have a Supreme Court, just like everybody else. The Georgia Supreme Court should step in and be like, "Hey, man, you can't play in the game and referee the game." I mean, I don't really understand how they even doing that. Kemp is following the red trail,
the Donald Trump playbook,
Donald Trump playbook, and striking fear into the voters, and not dealing with facts. White or black, Hispanic or Asian, if you want to better Georgia, in my opinion, you need to vote for Stacey Abrams. And hey, I mean, after 4 years, if you feel like she didn't do her job, vote her out. I mean, that's simple. But don't vote for this guy just because. I mean, even if you are a Republican, don't vote for him just because he's a Republican. Vote for him because you believe in the values and the policies that he's going to implement as governor of Georgia. So that's just how I feel. And in closing, tell the people how you feel, baby girl.
I mean, I think I've said so much, and I think I just feel like you should vote with your morals. If your morals tell you that the things you're hearing are not right, the things that are happening during this election are not right, then, that kind of tells you that you don't agree with everything that maybe Brian Kemp is pushing, all of his rhetoric that he's pushing about so many people are voting illegally. That's just not true. That's not true. There's no factual basis saying that there are ghost voting or dead people voting or illegal immigrants voting, but what is happening is, there are people who've made mistakes and who still should have the right to vote. They are legal. They are actual legal citizens of the United States, of Georgia, and they should have the right to vote just like everyone else. And like I said, I think the biggest message I want to leave everybody with is that early voting is open now at the Citizen Center on Macon Road here in Columbus from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and it's from 9 until 4 on Saturday and Sunday. So get out and cast those early ballots. If you that way you don't miss it, because I feel like on election day anything can happen, and then you don't have the opportunity. We're going to be here
election day. We're going to be here doing our thing, ain't we?
We're going to be here, or at least doing some break-ins and letting people know what's happening with the polls. So, you can still watch your favorite programs and check your Facebook and see what's happening with the elections. You don't have to, sit and not be able to watch your Netflix or whatever it is that you enjoy watching.
In my final words, I would say... imagine somebody denying you the right to vote because you put drive on your application and something else said DR with a period. Imagine your son's name was John Lee and they put John L. On the paperwork. Imagine if a simple mistake was made on your paperwork, from your driver license to your birth certificate. And then imagine if that person was white. What would happen? We can't recuse people who want to vote, who want to make a difference over simple mistakes that's made every day, everywhere. So at the end of the day, we're all Georgians. We all love our state. We all love our country. Vote with your heart. You don't have to vote for Stacey Abrams just because she's black. You don't have to vote for Brian Kemp just because he's white. Go with your heart. Who has the same values that you have? Who does the same, who has the same vision of taking Georgia into the 20th century that you have? Once you find that out, that's the person you need to vote for. So,
right.
This is the Modish Lifestyle Podcast. And until next time, I am Terrence Flowers.
Franki Foster.
And we out. Peace.
Thank you for joining us. Toodles.
Toodles. We good.